Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video on getting started with C# programming. In our previous session, we have already covered the first module of this course, and in this particular course, we will explore the second module of this particular course. Before we move on to the second module, let's first give a recap to what we have learned in our previous module, the module 1. In that module, we first covered actually the basic stuff, actually what's programming and why do we need to do programming, what are programming languages, what is a compiler, and we have also covered some stuff of C# programming as well, like what is C# and what are the features and advantages of C# programming. We have also seen what type of programs we can create using C#, like the web applications, console applications, desktop application, and so on. So let's start with this module. Before we start, let's first see what we are going to see in this particular module. First, we will see how we can set up our environment. We will be using Visual Studio. You can also use Visual Studio Code, but here we will be using the Visual Studio IDE. After that, we will see what are variables and how we can create variables, how we can declare variables, and what is the syntax in C#. The next step would be to discuss the primitive data types, like we have the integer, we have the float, we have char, we have string, and we have boolean as well. And we have some more types. We will give an overview of that as well. After that, we will see the type conversion, the implicit type conversion and explicit type conversion, or what we call typecasting as well. So let's get started. First, we will set up our environment so that we can create programs and do some practical stuff as well. As I told you that we will be using Visual Studio in this particular whole course. If you talk about Visual Studio, it's an official IDE of Microsoft created for this C# development and other programs. So we can create .NET applications in this IDE. And IDE is completely an integrated development environment where you don't need any external thing. You can check all those compilers and libraries inside the same IDE. You don't need to go to any browser to install anything externally. So that's an advantage of IDE. That everything comes up embedded. And first of all, we will see how we can download this particular IDE. So for that, let's first go to our any browser. So you can go any browser and let's search Visual Studio. Download. And the first website we will visit from official Microsoft. And in this particular screen, you will be downloading your Visual Studio installer. There are three types: the community version, the professional version, and enterprise version. These two are paid ones, so no need to go for them because you're only doing some basic development. So for that, you will be downloading this community version. That's free for you. So you can click this button, free download, and an exe file will be downloaded on your machine. Just run that particular exe file, and installer will be downloaded on your machine. After the step is done, you will see a prompt like this on your screen. And in this particular thing, what you will be doing for C# development, like we are going to create C# programs, or what we can say the console programs, console-based programs. So for that, we need this particular thing that will download all the stuff that we need to create our C# programs. So first, this is compulsory for you. Just check this button. And in future, if you are planning to create web applications like the ASP.NET Core MVC applications or web APIs, for that you need this particular thing. So right now you can also download this if you are planning to create web applications in future. But it's not necessary for now. You can just click this, and after that after clicking these two buttons or only this button, you can just click the install button here, and all this stuff will be downloaded. It will take some time to download depending on your internet speed. So after that, you can just open your Visual Studio. So let's open the Visual Studio here. So you can search it from here as well if you are not finding it. I have pinned it to the taskbar. So I will open it. And now let's create our first project. So creating project in Visual Studio is really simple because it's a GUI based platform. So just click on create a new project. And after that, since we are creating a console application, a console application is an application where you see your output on a console screen. A console screen is like a black screen, like a command prompt kind of a thing. So just for the first time, you have to search it from here, but for the next time, it will come in this particular recent project templates. So first time you have to just search here console, and the first template that comes up is console app, and you have to make sure that it's targeting the C# language, because there are other languages as well, like we have Visual Studio, we have F# as well. So we'll be using this C# language here. Just select it, click on the next button, and now it comes the time when you have to name your application, like what sort of name you want to give this application. So it's up to you what, and there is no particular hard and fast rule that you have to name it something like this. You can name it anything. Let's name it first app, and then you have to browse the location where you want to store this program. You can keep it by default here as well, or it can be different in your particular machine, and you can change it here as well by clicking the browse button. And after that, just click on the next button, and here we have to select the .NET version, which version we want to target. For now, we will be targeting the .NET 8 version, which comes up with the long-term support. .NET 9 is here as well, but for now we will not be using that. And then you have to change. You do not need to change anything here. Just click on the create button, and your console application will be created successfully. So just wait for some time. Okay, so here is our application, and our application is ready to run. You will be seeing some stuff here, like the namespace kind of a thing, the class, the main method. Don't need to go here for now. We will be discussing in later part of this particular course. For now, you can just think of this. You need this particular boilerplate to run your programs, C# programs, and think of this main method as the entry point, like from where our execution will be starting. And we will be writing our whole code for now in this particular block here. And you can already see, like we have seen in our previous video, or we can say in our previous session, how we can console a particular machine, a message on the screen to a user. So there is already one message written here, console.writeLine hello world. We can change it. Let's keep it hello, how are you? And now to run this application, you have to click this button here, or you can just click Control F5 from your keyboard, and your application will run, and you will see an output on your console screen. So we'll succeeded, and now a prompt will come on your screen, and this is our output. Hello, how are you? The thing that we have just written here is how we can console our things on the console screen. So this is how we can create our first project and run it. Our next step would be to discuss something about variables. So let's go to variables, and let's discuss the things about variables, what actually are variables. So if you talk about variables, what are variables? In our simple definition, we can say variable is nothing but it's a container where we can store some data. Like when you are creating some program, you need something where you can store the data, whether it's a data from the user or you yourself want to store some static data in your program. So for that, we need to make the use of variables. Just it's we can say a variable is nothing but a memory allocation where you can store some particular stuff. Like let's say you want to store some value 20 in a particular program. So for that, we need to create a variable. And to create a variable, we need three important things: a variable name from which we can later on refer to that variable. We need a variable data type. Like obviously, when you are storing some data, you will be storing some type of data. Like maybe you are storing some integers like 1, 2, 3, 4 or minus 1, 2, 3, 4. You can store some strings like ABCD or something else. You will be storing some Boolean values like true or false for statements whose answer can only be a true or a false. So that we can define using data types. And then we have the value, like what are you storing in that variable. If you have created a variable, so what data you will be storing in that particular variable is what we call the value. As simple as that. So in C#, creating variables is really simple. As I told you, first of all, let's say I want to store your age. Obviously, age is a number. Like it's an integer type. It can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 25, 26, or 30, 31. So if you want to create a variable in your C# program, first of all, we have to define the data type. Obviously, we are storing integers. So for integers, we write int, what we call int. And then we have to keep some variable name. It's up to you. There is no hard and fast rule. Yeah, there are some rules that we need to follow while creating variables. We will discuss that as well. But as such, there is no hard and fast rule. So we can name it anything. It's also called as identifier, using which we can identify our variables. And then we have to store some value. As you can see here, this is the data type. This is our variable name, or what we call identifier, and this is our value. So you can think of it as like this is your memory, and in the memory you are allocating some memory for this particular variable age. And obviously, when you are creating these creating these variables in your programs, these will be created in your RAM, what we call the random access memory. The time you close your programs, the data will vanish from your memory and it will no longer store there. So this is all about variables. What are variables? So now our next step would be to discuss how we can declare variables. Declaring variables means creating variables, how we can create variable. As I told you, the syntax is really simple. First of all, you have to define the data type, what type of data you want to store, and then the variable name, the identifier, and then the value using an equal to operator. Like if you want, as I told you, that you can store different type of data, and depending on your type of data, you can create your variable. Like for example, we want to store integers. For that, we have to use this int and then the variable name, and it can be anything. In the same way, if you want to store some decimal value, for that we have the float. And then for some single character, like you want to store A, B, C, or any other character, so for that we have the char. And then we have string if you want to store some sort of, we can say, collection of characters, like your name, your address, or anything else. So for that we use strings. And then we have the boolean, like if there is a statement which can only be either true or it can be false. So for that we have the boolean type, which stores only a true or a false. And then I told you about, like, when you are creating variables, you need to follow some rules. And the first thing is that your particular variable name should only start with a particular letter, or it should start with an underscore. Like when you are creating variable, it can start with a letter or it can start with an underscore. This means it cannot start with any special character, or it cannot start with a number. Yeah, you can later on use numbers, but start should be with an underscore or a letter particularly. Then when creating variables, there should not be any space. Like for example, we have created a variable here, is student. And if you can see, there is no space in between is and student. These are two different words, but there's no space. So the second rule is that there should not be any space in your particular variable. and then there is some particular convention that you need to represent these variable names, and a famous popular, we can say, convention is using camel case. Like the first letter of every word should be capitalized, like is, and the S student of S is capital. S of student is capital. Like there are some examples: first name, the name, the N for the name is capitalized, the age for the A for the age is capitalized in student age. In the same way, you can create your own variables as well. And the things that we have, the variables, data types that we have seen here are called primitive data types. Primitive data types, if you talk about primitive means that they have already been defined, they are predefined. You don't need to define them. They come up with the C# language. You can directly use them. So they are ready to use variables or data types. They are called primitive data types. The other type is non-primitive, where you need to create the data type first, and then you can use that. Like in case of classes, or if you are using enums, or if you are using any other type. So they are called a non-primitive. For now, we will only be discussing primitive data types, and we have already discussed them. Like we have the integer for numbers, we have float for decimal numbers, we have char for if you want to store a single character, we have strings for if you want to store some string, so a collection of characters, we can say, and we have boolean if you want to store some boolean type of value, like a statement that has only two values, either true or false. So for that we can use bool. And now then we will see the type conversion, the implicit type conversion and explicit type conversion. But before that, we will be doing some practical part. We will see some hands-on practice on data types, how we can declare variables. So as discussed, we will be doing this in our previous program that we have created. So let's comment this stuff. You can comment it using these two lines, and now your program will ignore these lines. So if you want to ignore some particular stuff in your program, so for that you can use these comments. And now we will be creating our variable. Let's say I want to store some student's name, so I need to create a variable for that. And obviously when you talk about names or anything else, you will be storing some strings there. And if you want to store some string, you have to create a variable of type string. And obviously we have seen that we first need to define the data type, then the variable name, and then we have to store the value. We will be following the same syntax here as well. So how we can do that? First of all, because I want to store your name, so the data type will be of type string. So let's create string. This is string, and then the variable name. What name do you want to give to your variable? Let's say I want to store address, so stu underscore address. I am following some particular convention here, convention like I'm not giving any space. So this you have to do. And then the value that you want to store here. Let's say I want to store, it's for example India. So now I have stored a value here in this particular variable. Now let's say you are using some space here. You will get a compile time error, because as I already told you, while creating variables, you don't need to use any space. Either you can use an underscore like this, or you can use the camel case notation, which comes up like this. Your first letter of this address should be capitalized. So now what we have done, we have created a variable student name where we have stored some value India. And obviously you can console this particular thing to your particular user, like console.writeLine. And if I want to console this particular value, I can write stu address. And now to run the program, I will click Control F5, and your program will run on your screen with the value India. You can see it here. You can also concatenate some message to this, like let's say I want to give a message like the address you entered is, and I want to show this particular message. But if you want to do it like this, you have to use an operator, what we call the concatenation operator. What this will do, it will concatenate the value of this particular variable with this message, or what this is also a string here. So let's run it right now. We will again get a message with this updated message. The address you entered is with the value from the variable. So this is a simple thing how we can create our variables. You can also create variables that we have already discussed. Like you can create an integer type, int age, or let's say stu, age is equal to 23, and this is an integer type value. You can also store some floating value like some decimal value. Let's say I want to store the weight of a student. So for that we will be using obviously the weight can be in decimals like 23 point something, or let's say we are storing height. So we will be using let's say we're using the integer type here. Let's take an example. stu height, student height is equal to, and I want to store 5.9. Now I will get an error here. What type of error is this? Because I am storing a decimal value and I am storing it in integer. So I will get a compile time error because an integer cannot store a decimal value. We have already seen that for decimals we have a particular variable here, a particular data type, what we call float, like this. And now you'll again get an error because whenever you are storing a floating type variable in a float data type, you have to use an f here. And then that f can be an uppercase letter or it can be lowercase. It's not a hard and fast rule and that you have to use lowercase or you have to use uppercase. So this is the way we can store our floating type variables. In the same way we have the character. If you want to store, like we have the student section, what section it belongs to. Student section is equal to, let's say he belongs to section A. And if you can see here, whenever you are using the character, you have to use single quotes. You have to embed that particular code or wrap that particular character inside single quotes. And then we have the string that we have already discussed, and for strings we have to use the double quotes. Next we have the boolean type. Bool is active. Let's say I want to check if a particular user is active on your social media or not. So the value can be either false or it can be true. So for false, if he is not active, we can write false here, and for true we can write true here. It can only accept two values, true or false, nothing else. Like if I try to write some other value here, it will not accept that. So we can only store either true or we can store false inside this particular value, right? So this was all about variables, how we can create variables and what are the simple rules that you need to follow while creating variables. So that was about it. So now the next thing that we are going to cover is the typecasting, or we can say the type conversion. In programming, whenever you want to we can say change the data type of a particular variable, so for that we need to do typecasting. And if we talk about typecasting is mainly of two types. The first one is the implicit typecasting, where the compiler casts the variable by itself, or it converts the variable by itself. We don't need to do anything. Or it can also be called as automatic conversion. And the second type that we have is explicit conversion, the conversion done by the user manually. So first we will see when this implicit typecasting occurs, or what sort of data is automatically converted. So for that, let's take an example. Let's say let's comment this out. Let's say you have a variable here, int a is equal to, and it's, let's say it's 20. Okay, and I'm trying to store this value inside a decimal value. Okay, as you can see in the example, we'll be using a double variable here. Double is also a data type. It's a bigger version for float that we have already discussed. Float is a variable where we will store some decimal type of data, and if there is a bigger number, like in float there is a small, you can store some smaller type of numbers. But if there is a bigger number, so for that we have the double for that. And in case of double, if you remember in float we have to use the f there. Like we have seen here that if you are creating a variable with float, you have to use the f keyword here. But for double, if you are storing some value, double, let's say its weight is equal to 29.4. As you can see, we don't need to use any letter here. Like there is no need to use f here. But you can use this only when you are expecting some bigger values. So let's say there is a value a here, and I want to store this a in a data of type double. Let's say b is equal to, I am storing this value a. So the value a I am storing in b. And if you see, a is of type integer and b is of type double. So now these two are of different data types. But what compiler will do, it will automatically convert this integer to this double. That is what we call the implicit conversion. The automatic conversion, what actually is done by the compiler. Now if I try to console.writeLine a, value in a is, and we again have to use the concatenation operator here. In the same way we can write value in b is. Obviously if you run this program, and the value will be same. As you can see, the value in a is 20 and the value in b is 20. This means the compiler has automatically done the internal conversion between these two values. So this can happen in other data types as well. So this is how we can store some value in this. Now comes the explicit data conversion, where we need to do this explicit conversion. Let's say you want to do the same stuff now. Like let's say, let's comment this out. Let's take the example, a reverse example. Let's say you have a variable here, let a is equal to, now we have a, let's say double a is equal to 20.5. Now we have a double type value, and we want to store this value in a integer type, and you will get an error. Why we are getting this error? Because an integer cannot store a double type value, but a double type value can store an integer type value. That's why here compiler does the implicit type conversion, and here it does not do the same, because an integer cannot store some we can say double type value or floating type value, we can say. So for this, what we need to do, if we want to store this, we have to do the explicit conversion. And how we can do that? And there are mainly basically we can say there are three ways how we can convert this. And the first one is we have to use a type here. Since we are converting this a to an integer type, so we will say convert it to int. So now it will convert this particular a value, which is of double type, to this integer type b. But in this case, what will happen? Obviously, integer cannot store a double type value. What will happen now? It will lose this data, this double data. It will only store 20, which is of integer type. So that's how we do explicit conversion. If you write console.writeLine b, or we can say value, or let's do one thing. Let's copy this stuff from here and write it here. And now let's run it. So we have run it. Value in a is 20.5 and value in b is 20. So you can see when we are converting a double type value to an integer type value, we lose some data. And that can be any type of data. And it's not always true that you will always lose some data. It depends whether it will lose or not. So this way we have seen how we can use this type here. We have to write the type here. This is one way of doing explicit type conversion. The other way is you can use the convert class. So for that, what we have to do, obviously we will again get the same error. So for that, we can use one more way, the convert dot to int32. So this is how we can convert an integer type or a double type value to an integer type value. And now it will again do the same thing. There is no difference between this and this. It will again do the same thing. So let's run it. And you can see this value here again, the same stuff we are getting here. In A, we are getting 20.5, which is a double type. And in B, we are getting 20, which is of type integer. So this way we have completed the explicit type conversion as well. You can do this explicit type conversion with other data as well. Let's say you have some string here. String ABC is equal to, let's say, 345. And now you want to convert this to type integer. So for that, we'll get a variable of type integer. Let's say int x is equal to, and we have to use this convert dot int32 of type ABC. Now what will happen? This particular string 345 will be converted to type integer x. This way we can do type conversion between the different data types. So let's summarize what we have learned today. First of all, we have discussed what variables are, and basically it's a simple container, or we can say memory allocation, where we can store some data. Then we saw what type of primitive data types we have, like we have the integer, float, we have char, we have string, we have bool. We have also seen double as well. And then we saw some naming conventions that we need to follow while creating variables. And at the end, we saw how we can use type conversion. We have the implicit that's done automatically by the compiler, and we have explicit that's manually done by us if you want to convert the data. We also saw the use case of the convert class and the type, how we can use the type and how we can use the convert class. So this was all about this particular session. And now at the end, I have a task for you. You can do this lab by yourself. First of all, just install and configure your Visual Studio, as I have already showed you how we can do that by installing the Visual Studio. After that, there is a particular task for you. Create a program that takes input from the user and it displays a formatted message. Like let's give an example. Take the input from the user, like take his name, and then give a formatted message like your name is this. Take in the same way, take address and then give a formatted message like your address is this. In the same way, it's up to you what type of stuff you want to take from the user. It's just for the practice stuff. And then also do some type conversions as well, so that you can get used to how we can convert data from one type to another type. And that was all about this session. So in our next session, we will discuss more about C#. We'll discuss some more concepts and do hands-on projects like this, and you'll also get a lab in that particular program as well. And one more thing I want to add here is this is just going to be a crash course to give you a quick start. If you want to deep dive and master everything step by step, you can check out our full course on Udemy.